Hey guys, how you doing? It is Wednesday, March 16th, and look at me on a podcast roll of sorts. I used to podcast every time something sort of came to me, and I was going over the resume of a mentee recently, and it started to hit me like, I'm going to do a podcast on why you're not getting the job. So many talented people, so many opportunities, and there's just some things that may be happening. You ever wonder, like, I wonder why they didn't call me back? Was it something I said? Was it something I did? Is there anything that I can do to put myself sort of out there as a front runner? So I am going to go through some tips that you may or may not have thought about. I'm going to try to stay away from all the basic things that you can likely find online. But before I get into it, housekeeping, you know you love this part. mytaughtyou.com is the website. The journals are alive and well. I do appreciate everybody who always supports with those. First journal teaches you my actual method, and the This Is My Year journal teaches you how I pretty much sort of like reset myself every so often. And I'm definitely in a resetting phase. I've got a few months from my birthday, so what is it, 2 months out? So I'm sure that I will be doing a sort of cleanse of sorts, but mytaughtyou.com is the site. Also, if you ever want to ask me any questions, you can do it on my Ask FM or on my Taught You site. I'm thinking about it, and I just thought about this today, that I might do a special email address which lets you get some longer questions out there, like to be more detailed, because sometimes I'm like, people ask me a question and I'm like, there's just not enough info here. So food for thought, stay tuned. I'll likely do that. But without further ado, I'm going to get into my very own sort of why you may not be getting the job. The basics like grammar, misspellings, these are all things that you really have to be aware about if you are actually looking for a job. And I know it's so easy to kind of be quick and to be sort of lazy about it, but you have to remember that you are not solely applying for this job. You are in a sea of other people. So how do you stand out in a sea of applicants? And if your grammar is incorrect, if you have misspellings, and I'm not saying that sometimes these things don't happen, and I tend to be a little flexible with that, but not too much, because this is the time when you just have to get it right. You have to have people's names spelled correctly. You have to have their company name spelled correctly. So you need to go and check exactly how it's written. So if there are certain capital letters, if there are hyphens, like, you have to get it right. We're going to get into cover letters and resumes and thank you cards and all that stuff, but have somebody else look at this all the way through, because sometimes our eyes are just so used to our writing and like the style or just our handwriting, and it doesn't pick up our errors and mistakes. Have one or two people look at whatever you write if you really do want this job. So that's just like the super basic stuff that you can find in any book, on any website, that like should go without saying, but doesn't always. Another thing that you probably aren't doing is your online presence isn't selling you. Just about everybody today is going to Google applicants. Like, that pretty much goes without saying. If you apply for a job and someone is actually considering you, I can guarantee you that they are going to Google your name and see if you have a Twitter, if you have an Instagram. A lot of people use LinkedIn. I have one, but I don't know. LinkedIn's not my thing, but I do know that people do get jobs that way. But they're going to look at your Tumblr, like whatever comes up. You need to be aware of whatever comes up when your name is Googled. And if all you do is kind of like comment on Love and Hip Hop, or, post memes that are just kind of like, things that don't sell you, I'm not saying that you can't show your personality and occasionally have a funny thing, because you can always tell when someone's stuff is too scripted or too perfect, and nobody's looking for that. But your online presence should be selling you. So we'll take me, for instance, because I'm easy to chat about. If I were applying for a job, if you go to my Instagram, you can sort of tell based on my personality how I am. So I think it kind of gives off of that I can be a little bit aggressive. And that may not work for some people, but that's not the job that I would be looking for. So for the right company that's looking for the right person, that's looking for me, I share some of my tweets. It shows that I'm like driven. I try to be inspirational and motivate. It shows that I travel. It shows that I have friends. It shows that I don't mind uplifting women. And if you go to my Twitter, you'll see the things that I retweet are like articles. I read The Atlantic. So what do you want people to know about you? And your online presence should be selling you. So if you're going into fashion and you don't ever post anything about fashion, like, how will I know you're into fashion? If you want to be in beauty and you never post lipsticks or eyeshadows or anything, like, no one's going to believe you. So be aware of that. Another thing that you may be doing is applying for something for which you don't necessarily qualify, or have the experience and don't know how to show relevant experience. And I'm certain that there are tips and tricks on this in books. I have some stuff that I want to chat about at the end, because I think this is where if you win all these other touch points, and I think something that really helps if you are struggling with the qualifications and experience are to provide references on the spot. So when I first was looking for a job way back in the day, and I didn't have a ton of experience, when I went in for an interview, I had a sheet of contacts with their phone numbers and email addresses. And you obviously want to make these people aware, but put their company and their job title. So I had some really good contacts, and sometimes you may not have worked with these people per se, but these people can vouch for you. So maybe this is a place that you get, and try to go with the highest title you possibly can. And you want to obviously let them know, but if I can find out that, like, I think on mine, I had like the VP of a company that I had interned with. I had worked at Unilever, and I had Robin down, like people who will vouch for you. And I think Robin went on to work for like Elizabeth Arden and all these other things. And it's just like sexy companies, sexy titles, with their information. Do not say references available. What is it? Available, whatever you guys say on there. I forget what it is because I haven't applied in so long, but available upon request. Like, don't do that. Give them out on the spot so that you can show that, like, people will vouch for me. That is something that you can do. And another thing that I did, and this is just taking it another step further because I tend to be an extra miler, is I had letters of references from them already on the company letterhead. So if I was leaving an internship, I would ask for, 30 copies or 40 copies of a recommendation on the letterhead. And if you get down to the end of it and you have to photocopy it, they still can figure this out by sending an email. But I had, on the actual stationery of Calvin Klein, of Coco Represents, which is no longer a company, but I worked there, people talking, saying great things about me. And another tip, because now I'm getting all deep into the tips, if you want somebody to write a letter of recommendation for you, just write it yourself. Just because people writing recommendation for someone off the cuff is just so hard. But if you just say, hey, if someone agrees to write a letter of recommendation for you, you can say, if you'd like, I have a sort of template already in place, and you are welcome to sort of update it and edit it to your liking. And people will just appreciate that, and you have a better chance of getting it back quickly. So that is something that you definitely want to think about. I do not like it when people say, can you write me a letter of recommendation? And I'm like, well, who is it to? What are you trying to get? If tell me, spell it out for the person so that you get exactly what you need. Another thing is that I feel like you're not getting the job because you're not looking for the jobs in the right place. So if you're going to some sort of job site, you likely aren't going to find anything because a lot of companies don't publicly post their jobs. So one thing that I think that you can do is call the company and ask if they have any private listings, like a private listing site. And if not, where you can find out about jobs at this company and where you can send your resume. So I totally don't mind if people do that. A lot of companies just don't show their jobs because they don't want for someone to know that they're getting fired. Like they may be looking for a replacement while somebody is still employed. There are a host of reasons why people may not do this. And we all know that like most jobs get filled by someone, that's either already employed or by a recommendation of a friend. So I always say this. I spoke at the Starbucks 100,000 opportunities last year in Chicago, and they hired about like 1,800 or 2,200 kids on the spot. And so many like 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds were trying to network with me. And I was like, I am not your greatest resource in this room right now. If 1,800 of your peers or 2,200 of your peers just got jobs today, those are the people that are going to help you also get a job. Your friend who has a job somewhere can help you get a job there too. So if your friend is doing great work, if you have any friends that are excelling at their companies, don't be afraid to let your friends or your social circle know that you're looking. Same for like dating. Like let people know that you're looking so that, you get put in the pot first, because people would so much rather hire someone that somebody else already has some sort of rapport with. So think about that. And if you want to take a little bit of a lengthier approach to getting a job somewhere, which I don't think is a bad idea, go to some events that the company does and establish a connection with someone who hires or someone who's close to the person who hires. So if there's a place that you want to work, everybody for the most part has some sort of event. Show up, be seen, help out, volunteer. The best way to show people what you can do is to kind of volunteer your time and show them in advance. So I'm going to tell you about how I got my first, how I got an internship, a really great internship, and my very first job out of college. I got a couple of good jobs, but I'm going to tell you, I got every job that I've gotten in an untraditional way. So I'm going to share some of this. Okay, now I made notes on this, but it looks like I got a little bit confused. Sorry. So the first thing that you want to do is make sure that you read recent articles about the company that you are applying for. This is going to be helpful in the cover letter, and it's also going to be helpful in the interview, because whenever they ask that dreaded question, like, do you have any questions for me? You can mention that article and ask something in regards to that. I saw that you guys came out with the XYZ just a few months ago. How's that doing? And what are your plans for the next one? Things like that. Like that says I'm invested. I'm smart. I do homework. Like those are the kinds of questions that you can ask and not feel stumped when that comes around. You also need to keep in mind, like, okay, I'm going to talk about the sort of process, and I apologize for I have so much to say, so many things that I want to share with you, that my organization is jacking me up. But Another thing that I'll just say is that like your cover letter says nothing about what you can do for the company. This is my biggest pet peeve, y'all. And I see this all the time. And I see this with the girls that I mentor because I'm like, send me your cover letter because I want to look at it. And the cover letter basically is just repeating the resume. And you can use the cover letter to talk about your journey. So, the first paragraph is like something compelling that allows me to get to know you, something that lets me know why you are interested in this field, why you're passionate about this, that, or the other, health or whatever you're applying for. Your first graph is going to let me know sort of who you are. Your second graph is where you tell me what you believe that you can do and what you bring to the table. So many people will write a cover letter to me or write to me telling me what they hope to get from me in this job. And I'm like, no. We already know. I already know what I'm going to be able to give to you. I already know that. But what I don't know is what you can do for me. And that is what you need to sell me on. You need to sell me on what you bring to the table. And the last graph, I don't think that you need more than 3 paragraphs. The last paragraph is where you sort of marry the 2 paragraphs, where you basically restate what you said. So, tying in your journey, tying in what you believe you can do, and the final push to sell yourself. Doesn't have to be long, but it's just your final selling point. Another thing that I'll say is that your resume has a bunch of jobs on it that no one even knows what they are. Like, you're going to have to describe your company sometime. So if you didn't work at really recognizably named companies, it's like sometimes I see things like, and what is this? Is it a boutique? Is it a club? So I think that underneath the company name, if it's not recognizable, take 3 words in small font and sort of like italicize it and describe it in 3 words. Online health food store, something like that. You get what I'm saying? Like, help me understand where you worked, because if I have to like Google it and try to figure out what it is, I'm reading through a bunch of resumes, like I may not look at it. So this is something that, I think that you should focus on. Another thing that you want to do is use words that are relevant to the industry that also show that you are results oriented versus task oriented. And there is a common useful tool that you can find online. It's called PAR, P-A-R, problem, action, results. So use your resume to show where there was a problem in the company, the action that you took, and the results that happened because of that. And when you do that, something else that I want to make sure that you do is quantify your accomplishments as often as you can. Put a number on as many things as you can. And you don't have to like pepper the whole resume with it, but like you should have places like, did you increase the social media by a certain number? Did you implement a system that shortened production time by X amount of minutes or X amount of days? Like, I need some numbers because I want to be able to quantify. I want to know what you did, because so many people just have the emptiest resumes, and showing me that you are results oriented is going to get me to give you a call back. And you have to, this is kind of like, wow, I don't know, I can't believe I have this so low, but like, you have to have something already thought out when someone says, so tell me about yourself. I'll never forget the first sort of full-time job interview that I got, and that was the first thing that the boss said to me. So I had interviewed at what was like the #1 entertainment PR company in the U.S. at the time. And my boss had launched like American Idol, and she was just so busy with all these different music acts that I kind of got passed through to have an interview with her. So it was like someone in her office met with me first. And then I'm certain that like once they deemed that I was like appropriate, then they forwarded me on to her, and she was the VP and she was looking for an assistant. But I remember in that interview, I had physical clips of things that I had achieved. So I had showed them how I had pitched something to a magazine and how I had gotten coverage for it. And like I came with proof that I was bad. Like Like anything that was on my resume, I had some tangible something to show you that I did. And if you can do that, you should do that. So you want to make sure that you know your resume inside and out. Like you have to know it. And so many people kind of like write out these long resumes and then they're not even aware of what all they said and what you have to have pretty much memorized your resume. And you should keep a copy with you, but you should know every single thing on it, which is why you need to be honest and keep it simple, because you don't want to seem flustered at all. And an example is just like you can say something like, if you take a look at, so this is me telling you how to answer that question of tell me about yourself. This is me. If you take a look at my resume, you'll see that I graduated 4 years ago. While in college, or 2 years ago, while in college, I discovered my passion and changed majors. While in college, I discovered my passion. I originally started off as a business major, and after 3 years, I decided that, I was interested in something that was more creative. Like, use this time to sort of beautifully walk someone through your resume. Take that time to really tell a colorful story about who you are. Do not let someone say, tell me about yourself, and you don't have a banging story for them, because you can rehearse this 100 times before that. And I had my story rehearsed. If you take a look at my resume, you'll see that you see what I'm saying? And you discovered your passion and all of this stuff. I was also president of this and that. Like, show these things and show how you got to every point in your resume. Like, weave it together and tell the story, From there, I went into an internship that I believed shaped my life. You see what I'm saying? I remember telling her the summer before I graduated, Essence, which is owned by Time Inc., and the CEW, which is the Cosmetic Executive Women, sponsored me, meaning they paid my rent and first 2 weeks of transportation for the first ever Summer of Beauty paid internship at Unilever in New York. So, do you see how I just laid all of that out? What I said to her was that I was selected by a very well-known company to get a job that was paid, but they believed in me so much that they paid my rent for 12 weeks and my first 2 weeks of transportation until I got a paycheck. It was the first ever. So they selected me to be a part of something that had never been done before. So the Summer of Beauty paid internship at Unilever in New York. I lived in Los Angeles at the time. So it said, I've spent some time outside of California and outside of Los Angeles. So these are the things that I'm hoping to communicate as I'm telling her about myself. And then I talked to her about the 2 projects that I was most proud of while I was doing this internship. One project that I was really proud of is the style guide that I created for Calvin Klein representatives at the makeup counter. Back in the day, Calvin Klein had a makeup counter. You probably don't remember that, but they did. And I was tasked to put together a sort of style guide of what they should wear to sell the makeup. And the other was to determine whether or not a 6-ounce shower gel should be created for the German market based on researching purchase trends, competitors, etc. So I'm telling her about myself, laying out, like, I'm trying to weave the perfect story, y'all. And I did, because I got the job, and I took some time. And when I told her about those 2 projects that I worked on, I had proof. I had my pictures. So the style guide I had scanned for her to take a look at. And I also had the research that I had done on the German market. I had just maybe 4 pages of the brief just to show that I do this. You see what I'm saying? And so I think I was only 24 years old at the time that I did this. And I don't know where I got this from, but I was like, I'm getting a job by any means necessary. So she looks at me and she's like, oh, really? So now when you're doing this kind of stuff, for the German market based on researching purchase trends and competitors, eyebrows are going up. And she's like, oh, really? And I'm like, yes. What I loved most about the assignment was, and this is where you start to speak to the fact that you enjoy working on teams, whether you do or not, that's what you say. What I love most about this was the collaboration that I have with my teammates, working with my boss to blah, blah, blah. It's been so long. I don't even know, but you get what I'm saying. And then you take the time, you can go, what surprised me most about my findings were, because you are a curious person and you want to show that. So don't hesitate to like really, really deep dive, what did I wear? I was not so clear of like all the different ways that you can dress for an interview. So I kept it simple. I always say, when in doubt, keep it simple. I wore a navy blue skirt suit. I felt like a skirt was, because I was dressed so boring, that a skirt was at least, sort of soften me up and make me a little feminine. So I wore a navy blue skirt suit with just a plain cream shell underneath and some really nice pearl earrings. And I wore my hair back and I did like just really nice makeup. And that's just what I did. And you don't really have to do that anymore. But I always say, like, if you aren't sure, get a uniform. Get something that you just always wear that always works. I felt like navy was a little more creative than just black. But, there's so many options and you want to dress for the industry. If you're going to get a job that's in a gym or sports oriented, I don't know that a navy suit is the best. But like I said, if you don't know, keep it simple. Nobody typically gets mad at you for being dressed up. It's respectful. So I then listen when someone tells you more about the job. So you should have already researched the job listing, and just go ahead and print out a copy of that as well. Print a copy of the job listing and have it in front of you, because that will also help you with the do you have any questions question. Pull that out and say, well, the job description mentions this, and like if they didn't mention something in the interview, bring that up. It says, there's 30% of travel. What does that travel entail? The job says blah, blah, blah. What exactly does that mean? Can you expound on that for me? So make sure that you print that out. And when someone tells you sort of what additional things that they're looking for, you want to repeat those things back to them, not like a robot, but by comparing them to things that you've done and letting them know that you definitely feel like you can do this based on some things. Refer back to your resume. Oh, I'm definitely able to do this, this, and that. In fact, when I was at blah, 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 you'll see that I XYZ, like have it together. And I had already assisted executives at prior internships, which were listed on my resume. And so it was like I had some experience assisting someone. And so, there were things that just didn't bother me and things that I actually knew. So at this interview for the job that I got, at the end, I think she was really impressed with me, like with my confidence and how everything flowed. Her final question to me was, but can you write? And I responded with yes. In fact, my senior thesis was selected by the dean of my department to be published by the International Textile and Apparel Association for academic research. The paper is available for purchase and can be found by Googling my name. And so I double checked that the other night when I wrote these notes for this, and it's still up. And it was 2004 is when they published it, and it was a body satisfaction of Asian, African American, and Caucasian students that I did with my college roommate at the time, and we did it with the dean of our department. So took you through that, and I apologize for the looseness of it. Like, I wish I could have laid that out better, but I had so many things that I wanted to tell you. But I want to get into the follow-up, because I feel like this is where a lot of people still drop the ball. So if you've ever wondered, how should I follow up? Just go ahead and take my advice on this, please. So the first thing I did was I emailed a thank you within 2 hours of the interview. It was short and simple, but I was clear to thank her for the time. you always want to thank someone for their time, okay? Like, people are busy, people took the time to chat with you, and you want to make sure that you're very clear about that. Hello, Lisa. It was such a pleasure speaking with you this afternoon. I'm really thrilled at the idea of working with you and the Gap or whoever. It was, I learned so much. I learned so much more at the interview, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you know what to say. And if you don't, send me an Ask FM and I'll give you some more tips. But you want to make sure that you send, a good 4 to 5 sentence thank you within 2 hours of the interview. And it should be genuine. It should not be scripted. It should reference something that you guys spoke about. You just don't want to be Little Miss Template, because everybody could smell a template a mile away. The next thing I did was overnighted a physical thank you card. So I did not put it in regular snail mail. I wanted to put it in like a FedEx or a UPS so that it came in a much larger envelope than the small envelope that I was sending. I want to stand out. I do not want my card to get lost in all of your mail. I want for somebody to sign for this so that I know that you got it. I think that you should do both, because if she was out and she was not going to get her mail, she got the email. And if she didn't see the email immediately or didn't open it, the card was backup if they were on the fence about you. So if you are running neck and neck with someone for this job, you do this, and it's like you separate yourself, because most people won't do that. So I interviewed for the job that I kind of talked to you through on Friday, and I was offered the job that Monday. And I believe my illustrious career began. I believe that job working for Devora at the time has helped me be the woman that I am today. And because she just invested in me in a way that no one else did, she made sure that I was constantly exposed, and I had no ego about the job. So I went into the job. I got offered $26,000 to start, and that's not a lot today. It wasn't a lot then, and I was living in Los Angeles. But my attitude about it was, I could be spending money going to graduate school, or I can accept low pay for the access and the exposure of what I am going to learn from this woman. And so that is how I looked at it. So a lot of times when people write me and they're like, so-and-so's not paying me my worth, I'm just like, sometimes there's a trade-off. And I promise you, for whatever money I missed when I was young, I have definitely made it back. I'm serious. I definitely have. And when you're younger and you don't have what they call golden handcuffs, meaning brand new car, brand new this, brand new that, do it, So if you're on the fence about whether or not you should take a low paying, high exposure experience and access job, let me tell you right now to take it. Another thing that I think that you should do for the follow-up is either ask for their card, or if they give you their card, show that you want to be connected to them. So say, if they hand you their card and say, call me, do it. They aren't just saying that. And so I've had someone who now works for me. I talked to her, I hired her, but I was like, do you want to know the one thing that I would if I had to critique your interview, what I would say? I was like, I handed you my card and told you to contact me, and you didn't do it. And it's just you have to do it. Don't be afraid to contact people, because that is where people are going to be able to see if you are aggressive and if you are not afraid. And so use it as an opportunity. I already told you to give references with good job titles, with phone numbers and emails at the interview. Do every single thing that you can to not get knocked out of the opportunity for this job. So I hope that helps you guys. I do apologize for the fact that it was scattered, but I got so excited about this as I was reading a mentee's resume, that I was like, oh my God, I have to share some of these tips with my my Insta friends. I want to call y'all my girls, but I know that I have more than women that listen to me. And so I thank you for supporting me as always. And good luck on your job interview. I hope this helps you. And if you get the job, tweet me